Welcome back guys to another one. Today I have a really cool case to show you from SilverStone with their ALTA G1M, which is a Micro-ATX case that supports the stack cooling effect, which is surprisingly modular and very easy to build in. So let's play with it. Since it supports Micro-ATX motherboards, there is no surprise that it makes good use of its real estate by accepting GPUs up to 355mm long and 4 slot wide, up to a 360mm AIO configuration, clever interior layout for hassle-free wire management, while it offers plenty of airflow from its included 180mm fan. It retails for around $170 for the black variant and $10 more for the white one. As before, SilverStone's signature blue theme packaging is still present. Mind you, confirm the specs on the box to double check your variant since the packaging is universal and it has both colors options displayed, one on each side. There is sufficient protection from the thick plastic cover and the styrofoam pads. Accessories wise, you get only a quick user's guide, a bunch of zip ties and all of the required installation screws. The ALTA G1M tower measures 200 by 507 by 307mm and it's made from steel and plastic. The net weight of the chassis is around 6 kg with a total volume of 31 liters. The front side has the following ports: 2 USB 3.0 Type A, 1 USB Type C, 1 3.5mm audio jack, 1 activity LED, 1 reset button and 1 illuminated power button. Now this is the rear side where the power cord will exit on the lower part, while the motherboard AIO cables will come out through the top cutout. The bottom has this gap which helps the included 180mm fan to suck fresh air and naturally vent it upwards. There is even a removable dust fan filter as well. The same base uses 4 rubber pads as its resting contact points. The other 4 holes are for accessing the screws to the 180mm fan if you want to remove it. As we progress, you will notice how modular the case is since all of the panels come off to expose the inner main frame. So this is the top hat, which of course has a dust filter built in. This is held in by some decent magnets. It reveals basically your motherboard rear AIO, and as you can see the case has 4 PCIe ports. There is great attention to detail since it even offers a cable guide before they exit the case through the rubber port. The two side panels, the full solid metal and the main vented one, use these large thumb screws to secure them into place. The front panel has a mesh on 90% of its surface with a permanent installed dust filter which will face the GPU chamber. It is held into place with the help of these big metal push pin style tabs which make the installation and removal quick and handy. Zooming in, it's interesting to see how they integrated the LED in the middle of the power on-off button. Fully stripping the case reveals the interior frame which, as you will see, it's really easy to build in because you have so much access to everything. From this angle, the GPU chamber is on the left, which is the front of the case, and up top we will have the motherboard. It supports CPU coolers up to 159mm tall, while the PSU, either an SFX-L or SFX, will be placed in its specific chamber on the lower right corner. This is the back of the case since we have the large motherboard cutout for easy accessing the back plates of the CPU coolers. Then the lower chamber will house all of the cables. Speaking of wire management, the case has 4 Velcro straps that are highly welcomed. The AIO tray is removable for convenient installation and will accept 120, 240 or 360mm AIO RADs or even 2 fully sized hard drive SSDs. Then on the back of the case you can install another pair of 120mm fans or another pair of hard drives. Then I really appreciate that all of the front AIO cables are in black and the Type-C port is highly flexible. The included SilverStone Air Penetrate 184i Pro 180mm fan is 32mm thick and it's rated up to 1200 RPM. Thanks to its Shark Force fan blade design, dual ball bearing and active cool motor, it will displace up to 143 CFM of airflow with a static pressure of 2.2mm wattle column while not going over 34.5 decibels of sound output. It's powered by a 4-pin PWM all-black non-sleeved cable that should reach where you need it to. Lastly, the PSU chamber will accommodate SFX-L PSUs up to 130mm long and it has 2 thick rubber pads for extra fitment and vibration reduction. Finally, this is the included extension cable that you will connect to the PSU and then later to your power cord. Before we build in it, it's worth mentioning that the case is built and designed to be used in its original tower configuration, as in don't place it on its sides on the desk because it will cancel all of its native airflow intake exhaust cycle. The first to go in is the motherboard. You can install your CPU cooler later anyway because the ALTA G1M case has a big cutout in the back. Next is the PSU, in my case the Corsair SF750 SFX. This can only be installed one way and the extension cable of the case is long enough to reach a unit like this with its port further away. Moving on, as you can see, there is plenty of space to access and install the PSU modular cables. Then the first hiccup I discovered is that the audio plug will not reach the designated port on my ITX board because after you install the GPU there's no way to reach there. Of course, on a larger Micro-ATX board the ports will be closer to the frame of the case because the motherboard is larger and at the same time will bypass the GPU. It's time for the GPU to go in, which will basically hang as you can see, and it will have plenty of ventilation from both sides. Routing the wires is a breeze since we have this strategically placed chamber and the velcro strap. Everything reaches comfortably. Mind you, when installing a triple 120mm fan setup on the tray or a 360 AIO, just make sure to bend route the opposite side the GPU cables because they will push into the fans as you can see here. I connected the fans to this SATA power fan splitter which comfortably resides in the same wire management chamber. Now for the most important part, let's see if the case has plenty of headroom to accommodate all of the exiting cables. As you can see, it does, even the thick and hard to bend HDMI cables. For my tiny desk, this case is a bit too big to be placed topside, but should feel right at home on the normal sized one, so I settled for the classic under the desk position. So far I never encountered the scenario where I'm gonna hit it by mistake with my legs because it's quite compact. Then from this angle we see how well ventilated the GPU really is. The finalized build, I must say, turned out quite a stunner. The case has all of my main components from the Dan A4 Ryzen Judge build, and let's see what numbers we get in the temperature and noise department. The first chart shows how the included 180mm bottom fan affects the overall temps in the case, where everything else is set at max 50% RPM. Even with a stock CPU cooler, the case has superb airflow and breathability. I set the CPU at that voltage as the baseline parameter since in its stock form the results are highly inconsistent due to the board's BIOS pumping way too much voltage. Then we have the same scalability in dropping the GPU temps as the 180mm fan's RPM increases. Regarding the noise test, realistically most people will keep the setting at 30 or 50% RPM for the fan, hence why I haven't included the 100% spot, because no matter what the components do in that case, their sound will be overridden anyway by the case's fan, which is over 45 decibels. Thus at 30 and 50% RPM with a recording spot from 30 cm away, the overall noise output for this setup with the OEM CPU cooler set at silent mode in the BIOS and the aftermarket fans and the GPU air cooling set also on minimum RPM, the SilverStone Air Penetrator 180mm fan is quite silent for its size and power. Of course, here is a noise sample as well. Well, there you have it guys, this is a surprisingly efficient case since it uses the simplicity of its Micro-ATX support. This in turn helps the layout for ITX builds as well because there is no need for a riser cable, thus reducing build costs. Furthermore, it's highly capable since you can even install a dual SLI setup if you really want to, on a Micro-ATX board of course. It will accept any modern GPU you can think of up to a 4-slot wide monster, minus some that have that stock AIO due to the vertical ejecting tubes on the GPU. Then the build experience is rewarding thanks to its well-designed interior layout. The included 180mm fan is excellent on coping even on its own since it's placed strategically on the bottom and has direct line of sight of all of the main components. Overall, the case is a bit pricey and it may not have an over-the-top and striking exterior design, but these reasons alone should not steer you away from it because considering its versatility, I think it's a long-term winner. As always, thank you for watching guys, and see you in the next one. Alex out.